My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and said, "You're not even half the woman my mother is." I felt the sting, but years of raising a family taught me to breathe, not break. So I pushed my chair back, slow, steady, and set a sealed envelope on the table, my phone face up beside it, ready to let facts speak louder than voices. That moment didn't end the night. It started a chain of quiet choices, receipts, policies, a knock at the door that would rewrite who held the power in my own home. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or type 1 if this hit close to home. It's funny how quiet a house gets right before company comes. The old clock in my kitchen ticked like it had somewhere to be, sharp and steady against the hum of the refrigerator. I laid out my mother's crystal, the kind that still caught the light even after 70 years, and aligned the silver in its neat row. Vanilla pudding cooled on the counter beside the roast, and for a moment, everything looked like a magazine spread for a life that no one makes anymore. At 7 sharp, tires whispered up the driveway. Velma's headlights washed across the dining room wall, slicing through the lace curtains I refused to replace. I smoothed my apron, mostly for the comfort of it, and went to the door. "Mom," Velma said, voice flat but polite, a man with one eye on the clock, beside him. Anna smiled the way people do when they're trying to win points for patience. "It smells nostalgic," she said, stepping in. "My mother would never spend all day cooking like this. She's minimalist, no clutter, no carbs." I smiled back. "That must make holidays easy to clean up." She laughed politely, the kind of sound that stops halfway to the eyes. Velma fidgeted with his phone. I noticed he didn't pocket it when we sat down. Over soup, Anna kept steering conversation into little lanes where I couldn't drive. She spoke about her brand, about home design trends, about curated lives. Velma nodded along, adding nothing. When I asked how his work at the supply yard was going, she answered for him. "He's taking a break to reassess." "Oh," I said, stirring my spoon. "Everyone needs air sometimes." Outside, a ferry horn sounded from Commencement Bay, long and low. The soup cooled before anyone finished it. They sat across from each other, sharing glances that shut me out like I was the waitress who'd stayed too long. I fetched the roast, poured water, refolded napkins that didn't need it. I had become the background noise of my own dinner. Anna leaned forward. "Your kitchen's cute. Feels vintage." "It's original," I said. "The cabinets were built with the house in 1924. "Wow," she said, drawing the word out. "My mom would call that an antique." Velma coughed into his napkin. I caught his eye for a second, just long enough to see the apology hiding behind it. We moved to the main course. I carved the roast, careful with the slices. This month's lease renewal notice came. I mentioned casually, "I'll drop it off tomorrow." Velma swallowed wrong, reaching for his glass. "Already? I thought—" Anna interrupted. "Oh, we're thinking about something new soon. Experiences over paperwork, you know?" I smiled and served her a piece from the end cut. "Experience needs somewhere to come home to." The table went quiet long enough for the clock to announce 7:05 again. After the plates were cleared, I went to the porch to check the pudding. The air had cooled. It set perfectly. I remembered Velma at 6 years old, face sticky with pudding, laughing so hard milk came out his nose. I almost laughed now, but the sound stayed somewhere behind my ribs. When I brought dessert in, Anna was scrolling through her phone, showing Velma something, a new recipe, maybe, or another house staged to look like no one actually lived there. She looked up. "You really don't have to go through all this trouble every time. Mrs. Reese, we could just DoorDash next time." "DoorDash doesn't know how to make my pudding?" I said lightly. She smiled again, the kind that means, "Bless your heart." True. Velma poked at his dessert, then said quietly, "Mom, did you talk to the landlord about—" Anna nudged him under the table. He cleared his throat. "Never mind, it's fine." I nodded once. No questions. The rest of the meal passed in small sentences, all rounded edges and no weight. When the dishes were done, I wiped a water ring off the table and set my phone face down beside it. The house hummed with that same low rhythm as the clock, 7:05 again. There are dinners where words fill the room, and then there are dinners that file themselves away like evidence. This was the second kind. I straightened the chairs, checked the locks, and told myself, document, don't debate. Next time I'd listen harder, but not with my ears. From the kitchen came a faint buzz. Our family group thread lighting up, a new photo. I let it sit there for a beat, the glow from the screen reflecting off the crystal. Then I smiled, because sometimes silence tells the story better than anyone's voice. The glow from my phone stayed on the counter, longer than it should have. I could still hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the same steady pulse that had followed me through 1,000 dinners, birthdays, snowstorms, graduations. I wiped my hands on a towel, sat down, and tapped the screen. The family thread opened with a photo, bright, polished, and smug. A receipt from Eden's Spa and Wellness. Package, couples escape. Below it, a pair of designer shoes tagged with a caption that read, "Self-Care Sunday. Deserve ye down worth it." The total was $1,187.94. My thumb hovered. No one had said anything yet. The message had been deleted, but not before the preview reached us all. The phone's reflection flickered off the silverware beside my plate. I didn't move. I just read the timestamp, 3:42 p.m., 2 hours before they'd claimed the car battery gave out and they couldn't send rent. I didn't sigh. I didn't curse. I just started counting. Dates, excuses, the stories they'd layered like wallpaper, electric bill late, unexpected dental work, car repairs. Each line now had a receipt shadowing it. Document, don't debate. I saved the photo, tapped print, and listened for the soft hum of the old wireless printer in my sewing room. The paper slid out, smelling faintly of warm toner. I folded it once, slid it under the placemat near my seat, and came back to the table. Anna's laughter floated down the hallway. "Spa days are medicine for the soul," she was saying, like nothing in the world could touch her. Velma sat quiet, head down, scrolling, pretending to check sports scores. I refilled their water glasses. "You two need anything else?" "No, Mom, we're good," Velma said quickly. Anna smiled. "Your pudding looks divine. My mother says desserts are a weakness of discipline." "Then she must live a very disciplined life," I said, evenly. She blinked, then laughed again, lighter this time. "She tries." The rain started against the window, small needles of sound. Anna began talking about minimalist kitchens and decluttered living, how her mother believed space created calm. I looked around my dining room, the mix of family photos, quilts, and 100 lived-in things. It wasn't minimalist, it was memory. Velma shifted in his seat. "Mom," he started, then stopped. Never mind." I met his eyes. For 1 second, I saw the boy who used to draw me Mother's Day cards with crooked hearts. Then he looked away. I brought the pudding in, the scent of vanilla cutting through the silence. 3 bowls, even portions. I set them down like a ritual. My hands didn't shake. "Looks homemade," Anna said, spoon poised. "It is," I answered. Some things shouldn't come out of a package. As they ate, I slid the folded printout from beneath my placemat. The corner caught the light, the clipped edge of a hashtag peeking out. I placed my glass over it. Anna leaned back. "You know, my mom always says you can tell a person's standards by how they serve dessert." I looked up. Then I suppose we both have something to measure. Velma's spoon paused midair. The clock ticked. I smiled. Slow, polite, unmovable, the kind of smile that keeps its own counsel. She went on, softer now. Her example just keeps me motivated. To stay grateful. To never settle. Good advice, I said. Gratitude takes practice. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between words. I folded my napkin, set it on the table, and reached for my pudding. Smooth, balanced, perfectly set. The clock struck again, 7:25. I took one calm breath and thought, don't raise your voice. Raise your standards. Anna's lips parted, her tone sharpening, ready to draw blood dressed as manners. And that's when the night began to tilt. Her spoon rested in her hand, and for a heartbeat, the world tilted. Then Anna smiled, tight, practiced, and said, "You're not even half the woman my mother is." The words hit the air and stayed there. The pudding's vanilla scent turned sharp somehow, like sugar just starting to burn. I didn't flinch. My spoon hovered above the bowl, a small reflection trembling in the custard's surface. I could hear the clock in the hall mark the seconds that followed, 1, 2, 3, each louder than the insult itself. I set my spoon down gently, careful not to make a sound. Silence has its own kind of gravity. I breathed in through my nose, slow and steady, the way I used to before sewing a delicate seam. It was almost funny how the room didn't know which one of us should speak next. The chair legs whispered against the floor as I pushed back, not fast, not angry, just deliberate. I stood to my full height, linen brushing against my knees, and looked at her, at both of them. The air had changed temperature. "I heard you," I said, nothing more. No tremor, no echo. Just those 3 words. Velma's fork froze midair. His knuckles whitened around the handle until the tines bent slightly. He didn't correct her. He didn't say a thing. The man who used to cry if he thought he'd hurt my feelings couldn't even look me in the eye. Anna tilted her head, half smirk, half defense. I didn't mean... I lifted one hand, barely a gesture. She stopped. "A woman," I said quietly, "is measured by what she builds and what she refuses to carry." The rain pressed harder against the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered to life, their glow cutting soft squares across the tablecloth. Anna looked down at her bowl, as if the pudding might give her a way out. "This is my home," I continued. "We finish dinner, then we handle business." I sat back down, posture unbroken. The quiet wrapped around us like cloth pulled taut. For a while, there was only the sound of rain and silver against porcelain. 3 careful bites, 1 folded napkin. I didn't rush, didn't fill the air. When I looked up again, they were both watching me, waiting for permission to breathe. "Respect," I said finally, "is not a debate topic. It's a receipt." I reached toward the sideboard, fingers steady on the linen folder I'd set there before dinner, a soft rustle of paper. Their eyes followed my hand. I placed the envelope at the center of the table, the flap sealed clean, my palm resting on it. "We'll open this together in a moment." Outside, thunder rolled far off over Commencement Bay. The envelope waited under my hand like a seam pulled tight, ready to be released. The envelope's flap waited under my hand like a seam pulled tight. I broke the seal cleanly and slid out 6 pages, bank statements and receipt printouts, edges squared, corners aligned. I didn't look up. I stacked them by month, my voice even as I counted into the room. February, March, April, May, June, July. I fanned the statements in the center of the table. Dates, amounts, the memo line in plain type. Rent, Hamilton's Unit 3. Each row wore a yellow highlighter bar, $800. And beside it, the recurring $100 processing fee for the direct transfer. I rotated the pages so they faced them, not me. The paper smell rose from the lamp. The rain softened on the window. Listening. "Are these accurate?" I asked. Nothing in my voice for them to push against. Velma's throat clicked. Anna studied the highlights as if they were purely aesthetic, as if color could turn fact into decor. Silence answered first. I let it. The clock obliged with 3 measured ticks. I tapped one date with my index finger, May 5th. On this date, who paid? No accusation. Inventory? Velma's shoulders dropped a notch. He didn't speak. Anna's mouth made a small circle, then closed. Behind their faces, the math ran by itself. Dinners out, spa packages, new shoes, the same days my account paid their landlord. "Generosity is not a subscription," I said. I slid my phone from beneath my placemat and turned it face up. "And it ends tonight." The glass caught the overhead light as I opened the banking app. Savings, transfers, autopay, cancel, confirm. A soft chime landed between us like a gavel on felt. A half breath later, Velma's phone lit with the same blue banner. In the silver, I saw our screens glow and fade. "We will finish dinner," I said, setting the phone down, "and then you will decide how to proceed without my account. Respect is due whether you have a plan yet or not." I folded the empty envelope and left the papers on the table. No lectures. The facts could do their own speaking. "It's just money." Anna tried, reaching for magnanimous and landing brittle. "My mother says family." I lifted the top page and read the memo line aloud, then the amount, then the fee. She looked away first. The words dried up on her tongue. Anna tried again, softer. "You know how times are. Everything's more expensive. My mother says a family should pool resources so no one sinks." "Pooling," I said, "is when everyone swims." I laid a fingertip on June's line and the note field I had typed months ago for myself, last extension. I didn't raise it as a threat. I let it exist like a mile marker you pass. The road has already carried you beyond it. Velma's fork scraped once and went still. He breathed in, brave, for half a second. "We were going to tell you," he said. "I believe you were going to ask," I said, not unkindly. "There's a difference." Thunder grumbled somewhere south toward the sound. The house settled. The hot water heater clicked off. Ordinary noises, a life I know well, kept circling while the 3 of us sat with the cost of choices. I gathered the bowls and brought a small plate of butter cookies from the tin I keep for my quilting group. I set one cookie beside each bowl like a peace offering, but I did not mistake it for a treaty. I rose to bring the dessert while the room recalibrated. The custard had set. A good custard rewards patience. I placed 3 bowls, steady hands, no clatter. Vanilla and rain mingled. We ate in quiet, 1, 2, 3 spoonfuls, the documents lying between our bowls like a carpenter's level, keeping everything honest. Across from me, Velma finally managed, "Mom," but the rest of his sentence had no place to go. He looked at the paper again, as if the columns might rearrange themselves into a kinder story. They didn't. "Velma," I said, and kept my voice low. "Adulthood begins at the moment you stop hoping that paper will erase itself." He nodded without lifting his eyes. It was not victory, it was gravity. I set my napkin on the table, smoothing it with my palm. In a moment, we'll confirm the recipient with the building. I reached toward the handset by the wall phone. Yes, I still keep one. When storms roll through, cell service sulks. Before my fingers touched plastic, a firm knock folded into the rain on my porch. Right on time. No one moved. I let the seconds stack. 3 more ticks from the hall clock. Another knock, measured and polite, like someone who understands houses like mine and the women who keep them. I stood and crossed the kitchen. The porch light threw a soft circle onto wet boards, catching the silver threads of drizzle. Behind me, the table waited, bowls half finished, documents squared, phones quiet. "Stay seated," I said without turning. "We're not done." My hand closed around the deadbolt. The metal was cool, familiar. I opened the door onto the damp evening and the shape on my stoop. "Good evening, Ms. Reese," the visitor said. The rain made a fine mist between us. "I'm here regarding 420 Hamilton Street, Unit 3. The papers on my table did not rustle, but I could feel their weight from across the room, as steady as a signature. "Of course you are," I answered, and stepped aside to let the night and the record speak. The knock folded into the rain on my porch, right on time. I opened the door to a man in a company windbreaker, rain beads on his shoulders. A laminated badge swung over a clipboard. "Evening, ma'am," he said, quarterly filter reminder. "Is the office still open?" I asked. "After hours line is live," he said, nodding at the van idling at the curb. "Would you wait at the threshold?" I said. He stayed on the mat, respectful. From there he could see the table. Bowls, papers, phones, without stepping into my dinner space. "I just need a signature," he said. I signed and dated. His presence reset the room the way an usher settles a theater before the lights go down. Back at the table, I set my phone in the center and tapped the number at the bottom of the statement. "Lakewood Property Services," a woman said. "This is Dana." "Hello, Dana? This is Lois in Lakewood, Hamilton Street, Unit 3, I said. "I'm calling to verify the source of rent payments from February through July. I have the account number." "Go ahead," she said. I read the numbers, the name on file, the last 4 digits she asked for. Anna folded her arms. Velma stared at a napkin ring. "One moment," Dana said, soft typing through the speaker. The maintenance tech shifted his weight on the porch. Rain ticked in the gutter. "Payments posted from Lois Reese," Dana said. "Auto deposit on the 5th of each month, February through July. August shows a cancellation at 7:38 p.m. She stopped. The truth didn't need adjectives. Silence took a seat. Anna let out a short, humorless breath. "That doesn't reflect our arrangement," she said. "I can only speak to payments received." Dana replied. "Thank you," I said, ending the call. I set the phone back on the placemat. Screen dark. The witness at my door didn't comment. He knew filters, not families. "Ma'am," he said, "if you'll initial here, I'll be out of your hair." I initialed. "Please leave a copy," I said. He tore off the carbon sheet and handed it to me. I set it beside the bank statements, paper beside paper. The house exhaled. Anna smoothed her blouse. "We had an understanding," she said. The words were smaller now. "My mother says families endure," I said. "They don't erase." I slid the copy into the basket by the sideboard with warranties and tax receipts. I turned to the tech. "Thanks for braving the rain. Part of the job," he said, tipping his cap. He waited for me to close the moment. I nodded. He went down the steps. The van door thumped. The engine hummed away. I locked the deadbolt and returned to my chair. The table looked the same and completely different. Confirmation doesn't add volume. Just wait. "Velma," I said, "given what you've heard, what is your plan for September?" He finally met my eyes. "I'll find hours," he said. "I'll call my manager tonight. I'll pick up weekends." "Good," I said. Not praise, not scorn, just the next step. "I can sell a few things," he added. "The golf set, the watch." He glanced at Anna as if asking for permission he shouldn't need. She stared at the papers. "We'll figure it out," she said, but it sounded like a wish. I pushed a glass of water toward her. Drink, I said. Then eat your pudding while it's still cold. Manners are easier than humility. Sometimes the smallest obedience rebuilds a room. We ate in quiet. The custard held its shape. Rain softened. Somewhere a dog barked and gave up. I let ordinary life walk back in. I lifted a tabbed file from the sideboard and set it beside the statements. The first tab read, Guarantor, Renewal. The second read, Authorized User, Removal. I rested my hand on the cover but didn't open it. 2 items remain, I said. Administrative. Anna's eyes flicked to the tabs. Your name is on our lease? My signature is, I said. Responsible party in the event of non-payment. I tapped the first tab. It is time to release that. Velma swallowed. That's fair, he said. Hard words. But he carried them. I nodded. I looked at the second tab. And this one? I said. My card, used for convenience. It will be removed from any account that isn't mine. I stood, dialed the office number printed under the maintenance line, and left a clear message for the renewal box. My name, unit. Intent to remove guarantor status at the next window. Please call Monday to schedule paperwork. When I hung up, the house seemed to settle around the decision. Thank you for the reminder, I said to the empty doorway where the tech had stood. To my son, same tone. Thank you for saying what you will do next. He nodded. I'll text my manager now, he said, and for once the glow of a phone at my table didn't bother me. I gathered the bowls. The sink is hot, I said, and we are going to take care of dishes like adults. It wasn't punishment, it was a reset. Water ran. Chairs moved. Silver clicked. For a few minutes we were 3 people doing a simple task without speeches. Soap made small hills. Warmth climbed back into the room. When the last glass was set to dry, I turned off the tap. We're done for tonight, I said. On Monday we'll finish the paperwork. I dried my hands and returned to the table. The papers waited, squared. The file waited, calm. The wall clock marked 7:55. The tabbed file waited for my hand. One label reading Guarantor, Renewal. The other authorized user, Removal. The tabbed file waited for my hand. One label reading Guarantor, Renewal. The other, authorized user, Removal. I drew the chair in and opened the first tab. Forms slid out. The boxes already filled with names and unit numbers. The room smelled of vanilla and wet cedar. I set a blue pen beside the header. I wasn't angry. Anger is noisy. Accuracy is quiet. I'm going to read the headings, I said. Intent to decline guarantor renewal. Effective next cycle. I placed the sheet flat between us so the language faced them, not me. The clock's hand swept past the 8. My pen touched paper and moved in a steady cursive I've had since high school bookkeeping. My name, today's date, the tidy curve of an R that looks like a ribbon. The pen's dry whisper was the only sound. This is not a punishment, I said, signing the last line. It's alignment. I slid the form into a certified envelope and pressed a green sticker over the flap. Support ends in writing, not rumor. The sticker made a soft tack. I addressed the envelope to the leasing office and set it upright by the salt, a new landmark on my table. I pulled a narrow ledger from the sideboard, the one where I log what matters, under a column of previous helps, co-pays, deposits, temporary subscriptions. I drew a line to the margin and capped the pen. Full stop. Adults carry their own contracts, I said, not unkindly. I moved to the alcove desk and woke the screen. The cursor blinked like a metronome. My bank profile opened with a familiar blue. Manage authorized users. I clicked. Their names sat nested under mine. I looked over my shoulder. I'll give written notice before I change access. No confusion tomorrow. I typed a 1-paragraph memo and printed 2 copies. Authorized user access will be removed as of today, 8:04 p.m. Pacific. I dated and signed them and carried one to each plate. No scolding, just paper. Back at the desk, I checked each name. The site sent a security call. I answered and spoke the numbers that prove I am who I am. The screen refreshed. Authorized user removed. My phone chimed. The app chimed. 2 soft notes. Anna glanced at her slip. "We've had your card on there since the move," she said. The words small, already looking for somewhere to hide. "And you won't have it there tomorrow," I said. "From here, call the leasing office Monday and show proof of income or downsize. Either way, you'll decide like adults. I won't be a secret line item." Velma nodded once. "Can I get the leasing number?" he asked, voice rough. "It's written at the bottom of the certified envelope," I said. "You'll call, you'll ask for renewal without a guarantor, you'll bring pay stubs. If you need the printer, you can use it tonight." His eyes rimmed with red, but he held the look and didn't blink away from it. There's dignity in that. Anna inhaled like she was about to tell a story that might bend the room back toward her, then saw the green sticker and swallowed the narrative. Paper outlasts speeches. She folded her slip small. I filed my signed copy into the tabbed folder and wrote tonight's date on the spine with a marker. The file cabinet took it with a clean click. I turned off the desk lamp, letting the dining room reclaim the stage. No more screens, just the 3 of us and the common work of evening. I cleared the bowls and filled the kettle. The burner settled. "Tea?" I asked. Velma said yes. Anna said, "Sure," like a thin truce. I set out mugs and a small jar of honey. "House rules are simple," I said as the kettle murmured, "Respect in, respect out." Steam rose, rain softened. The intercom by the front door gave a faint test buzz as if the building were practicing its own boundaries for tomorrow. I poured the water and let the tea bags steep until the color matched the shade my mother used to call good and strong. We sat with our hands around warm cups. Sometimes heat itself is instruction. Hold, don't spill, wait. "We're done with money tonight," I said. "On Monday we handle signatures. Between now and then, you make a plan you can carry." I looked at my son. "Text your manager. Asked for hours." He pulled his phone, typed, and showed me the message. "Sent," he said. I nodded. He didn't need approval. He needed momentum. Anna stared at the steam and then at me. "Your house is very deliberate," she said, which I took as the closest thing to respect she could find. "It keeps me honest," I said. "Paper helps." We drank in small sips. A car hissed on the wet street, down the block. Wind chimes answered the weather. I rose and rinsed the mugs, then dried them and returned them to their hooks. I end nights with things back where they belong. The certified envelope still stood at attention by the salt. The ledger was closed. The tabbed file was put away. The house felt level again. "Thank you for staying to the end of the evening," I said, not as a hostess, but as a witness. "We'll meet adulthood at the office window, not at my kitchen table." No one argued. That, too, is a kind of respect. The intercom buzzed again, longer this time, then quieted. Tomorrow it will matter. Guest passes, door codes, how access works without my accounts. The rain eased. I turned off the dining light. In the slow dim, the green sticker held a small square of porch glow. Proof has a way of catching light even when the room rests. The intercom's faint buzz still sat in my ears like a red light as the rain thinned to a mist. I took my keys, an umbrella, and the tote with their signed copies. "I'll drive you," I said, "so we end the night clean. No lecture, just transport." The porch rail beaded up like it always does when the wind comes off American Lake. The clock over the sink read 8:21. They nodded, quietly grateful. Or just out of moves, hard to tell. I locked the deadbolt behind us. Boundaries first. Kindness next. That's how you get home safe. In the car, the wipers set a patient rhythm. I warmed the cabin and let the heater hum carry the silence. Streetlights slid over the hood like slow boats. Velma watched the lanes with his jaw tight, phone face down on his knee. Anna scrolled something bright across her cheekbones, the same way she'd scroll through a conversation, looking for an angle that liked her better. I didn't fill the quiet. Consequence needs air or it suffocates and comes back meaner. We passed the grocery where I used to buy his cereal, the gas station that still takes cash, the little strip mall where they sell Tux rentals and vape juice under the same sign. Hamilton Street's curb shined under the lobby glass. I nosed into the loading zone and kept the engine running. The intercom panel gathered rain, red LED steady as a stoplight on a farm road. "You first," I said, umbrella angled so they could duck under. I stayed behind the wheel. I have no business in their lobby unless invited, and tonight wasn't that. Velma pressed the code like muscle memory could argue with a system. The speaker answered with a flat tone, suspended, "Contact office." He tried again. Same tone. Anna pressed longer, as if a hard press could charm circuitry. The rain clicked on the metal faceplate. No change. I pointed to the little decal under the panel, the number printed in practical font. Velma called. I could hear the neutral voice even from the car. "Temporary suspension pending proof of income or cosigner update." The phrasing had no heat at all. Policy doesn't need heat. It needs dates and boxes and a window that opens at 9. He lowered the phone slowly, like it weighed more now. "They said," "Yeah," he murmured, pocketing it with care, as if shame might spill if he moved too fast. Anna waved a blue hang tag at the camera for the garage gate. The arm didn't stir. A text pinged her screen. She squinted, then read out loud, as if reading to herself might soften it. "Guest pass inactive." The word inactive can end a whole paragraph without raising its voice. She stared at the message longer than it deserved, like she could stare it back to life. The gate stayed put. The red LED kept its little heartbeat of no. The security light over the glass door flickered, then steadied. Another prompt flashed on the panel. "Re-authenticate resident fob." Velma swiped. Denied. Again. Denied. "Visit office with ID?" the speaker said, as smooth as the hold music from earlier. He let the fob hang from his fingers. Elbow loose, shoulders low. For once he didn't build a story. He just breathed. Sometimes that's the first honest thing all night. "You have options," I said evenly through the cracked window. "You can call the after-hours lockout, pay their fee, and they'll let you in once. Or you can stay with her parents and handle the office at 9. Your choice." I did not offer my couch, a spare key, or clever shortcuts. Rescue makes a mess when a person needs a ladder. The rain softened to a sift. A bus hissed by and made the gutter talk. Tacoma on a Friday, tired, ordinary, truthful. Velma nodded and dialed the lockout number. When they quoted the price, he winced and thanked them anyway, then said he'd call back if needed. Practical is a muscle. It hurts if you haven't used it in a while. Anna started. "My mother would never," and stopped when the figure landed between us like a box on a scale. Numbers don't care what anyone's mother would do. Numbers are the grown-ups in the room. He leaned to my window. "We'll go to her parents," he said, voice thinner but not collapsed. "I'll be outside the office before they unlock the door." He looked older than he had an hour ago, in a good direction. I pulled a small index card from the tote, leasing office hours, address, and the name of the clerk who actually answers the phone. Monday at 9, I said. Bring pay stubs. Ask for a month-to-month while they review. It isn't glamorous, but it's breathable. Anna tucked the hang tag into her tote like a ribbon from a race she didn't win. We'll handle it, she said, and for once the words carried work instead of posture. I nodded once. Respect in, respect out, I said, the same phrase I used over the tea mugs. I didn't invent it. Life did, and I just learned to say it before the moment gets cloudy. They stepped back from the curb, close under the umbrella together, the way people stand when the weather has one story and they share it. I eased the car from the loading zone. The red LED blinked in my rear view like a small lighthouse, but not for me. By the time I turned onto the arterial, my phone buzzed. Voicemail. I let the road breathe under the tires and listened at the next red light. It was my son, steady for 9 seconds. Mom, Monday, 9. I'll bring the stubs. I'll call you after. No excuses, no flattery, just a plan. I saved it and felt the night shift a half-inch toward right. Home again. I parked under my porch light and set the tote on the passenger seat for tomorrow's mail run. The rain had turned to a shine on the pavement, the kind that makes streetlights look like long threads. Inside. I wiped my keys dry and set them in the bowl. The house exhaled with me. Access is not respect. Access is a code, a tag, a beep. Respect is how you talk when the beep says no. I turned off the hall light and let the quiet take its rightful place. The voicemail waited for me with the coffee. Steam curled from the mug while the kitchen still held that early light that makes everything look kinder than it is. I pressed play and listened to my son's voice, stripped down to nouns and times. Temp agency at 9. If they've got warehouse, I'll take nights. I'll call you after. No weather. No story. I wrote the details on a yellow sticky and pressed it to the fridge beside the grandkid's crayon sun. Then I listened again. Not because I doubted him, but because proof has a sound. Short, plain, finished. I called back before the morning rush could swallow his resolve. Text me proof, I said, looking at the sticky as if it were a contract. Application receipts. If you start a shift, send the schedule. I kept my voice even. By Monday noon, I expect one of 3 things: an offer letter, confirmed interviews, or a move-out date. Those are adult options. He didn't argue. Understood, he said, and it landed the way a bolt lands when a porch chair finally tightens right. I added 3 bullet points to the sticky with my pen and circled the word noon. Next to the note, I laid out a different kind of ledger. My Medicare explanation of benefits, last month's copay receipts line like train cars, and the printed screenshot of the spa package and $400 shoes. Paper has gravity. You set it down and it sits there, unbothered by charm. I took a single photo of the 3 items side by side and texted it to Velma. My healthcare is not a negotiable. That was the message, no paragraph. The dots pulsed, and then understood. It read like he'd felt the weight I meant him to feel. On the side of the fridge, a magnet shaped like a spool of thread held a soft paper flyer I'd been avoiding. Counseling hours at the community center. Sliding scale. First come. I dialed before I could talk myself into later. First available? I asked when a human answered. Today, noon, phone intake. She said, "Can you do that?" "I can," I said, surprised at how steady I sounded. I wrote noon on the same sticky, right under my son's appointments. Different columns, same math, care is work, too. When the hour came, I took the call on the porch. The rocking chair creaked the way it did when I nursed Velma during flu nights, back when rocking could fix most things. The clinician's voice was calm and not young. She asked questions that didn't pry, just placed sleep, boundaries, financial entanglements. I told her about the autopay and the receipts and the sentence Anna sent across my table like a thrown dish. Imbalance isn't love, I said, and heard myself believe it. We set Tuesdays at 11. She gave me 3 breathing prompts I could actually remember. We said goodbye without a single sorry. Inside, I opened the hall closet that wore the label, "For the kids someday." Someday is a hole expensive people fill with units and the rest of us fill with hope. I pulled down boxes and made 3 masking tape labels on the dining table. Keep, donate, trash. The baby quilt stayed, soft with washings, edges hand-stitched by me at a kitchen table in 1987. The centerpiece vase they never picked up went to donate. A set of novelty martini glasses nobody in this family needs went to trash with a small, grateful clink. Decision is a muscle. I worked it until it warmed. By 10, I had the trunk loaded, framed prints they left for now, an extra coffee table bought at a yard sale, a blender with a broken lid. At the thrift donation bay, the attendant lifted each item like it might tell him a story. He stamped my receipt. Thump. There's a sound to letting go when you do it right. It isn't a sob, it's a stamp. Back home, the empty closet looked like square footage I'd just earned. Space came back to my house and took a full breath. I made a sandwich and drove to the community center. The corkboard near the gym smelled like rubber and hand sanitizer. Paper tabs fluttered in the AC night sanitation, hospital linen service, warehouse packing, booth rentals for the fall craft fair. I took 2 tabs for Velma, linen service and sanitation, because they start people who show up on time and keep to themselves. I tore off a craft fair tab for me and tucked it into my wallet behind my driver's license. If I can mend suits, I can hem table runners for cash. Hope doesn't have to be bright. It can be useful. On a bench outside, I texted Velma photos of the tabs and the location of a small job fair scheduled for tomorrow at the same gym, complete with bus routes written out the way an aunt would write them. He texted back a photo of his agency paperwork and a 1-line note. Warehouse orientation at 5 if background clears. Good, I wrote. Text when you know. Then I opened my own calendar and wrote, in ink big enough to see without glasses, craft booth app, Monday 10 a.m. If I'm going to preach plans, I need one with my name on it. Back in the kitchen, the house light changed from morning to noon to early afternoon, the refrigerator humming with the steadiness I envy. I taped the craft fair date to the fridge under the spool magnet and next to the sticky. The list looked small and firm. His temp agency, his shift possibility, my Tuesday therapy, my Monday booth application, the kind of list that doesn't care if you slept badly or if your feelings got their hair wet. Doable is a kind of mercy. The phone buzzed. A text from Anna. My mother says we should talk. It read, no hi. No, how are you? Just a line like a door pushed open with fingertips. I didn't answer fast. I put the kettle on and took my tea to the porch. The clouds had broken into polite pieces, and a neighbor's flag clacked lightly against its pole. You can take a conversation on your terms without making a show of it. I set my phone on the arm of the chair and rocked. The screen lit up again. Second text. She thinks there's been a misunderstanding. The word misunderstanding can hide a week's worth of choices. Before I typed, I called my son. How'd 9 go? I asked. He sounded tired in a way that suggested work, not excuses. Paperwork done, he said. Background check is moving. They said bring steel toes if I have them. Your father's old pair is in the garage, I said. If they fit, they're yours. There was a soft sound, not quite a laugh. Okay, he said. I'll swing by later. Do, I said, and we hung up without ceremony. I looked at Anna's texts again and typed slowly. I'm available at 3 for a 15-minute call. Speakerphone recommended. We'll stick to facts and next steps. I sent it and put the phone face down. I filled 2 grocery bags with pantry items for the church food shelf, because justice works better when you keep doing regular things. I check the porch paint where it peels and press the edge back with my thumb. Nothing that matters is fixed in a single swipe. At 12:28, my phone pinged. A photo from Velma, a pair of steel-toe boots set in his trunk, the laces clean. "They fit," his text said. I sent a thumbs up, then wrote, "Plans, not promises." He sent back the same words, like a child returning a handshake. I stuck a second sticky under the first. 2's 11, therapy, Mon 10, booth app, Wedi, call electric about budget plan. When you put grown-up things on paper, they stop scaring you like shadows in a hallway. As I clicked the pen closed, another message flashed from Anna. 3 is fine. My mother will be with me. I let the kettle hum a bit longer. If a door opens, you don't rush through. You check the hinges, you check the ground, and then you decide if it's your door at all. I laid my phone on the table next to the yellow sticky and the craft fair tab and the spool magnet, and the house felt like a chest you could breathe in. I kept my reply short and plain, the way you put a thumbtack through a note. Proctor Cafe, 3:30, 30 minutes, public table. She wrote back a single word. Okay. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a seat facing the door. Chair angled toward the entrance so my neck wouldn't tire from turning. The barista knew me enough to say, "Afternoon, Lois," and set down a plain coffee. I texted Velma, "Meeting with her mother, you focus on applications." He answered with a photo of a line at the temp agency and a thumbs up. Good. Everyone with a job to do. They came at 3:31, rain muted and composed. Anna led, chin high. Beside her was a woman I'd seen in holiday photos, tall, curated, a collar that didn't dare wrinkle. "Casey," she said, offering a hand with a simple band and a firm grip. I stood, shook once, sat. No hugs, no script. "Thank you for meeting," I said. She gave a small nod and studied my face the way a hiring manager reads the first line of a resume. I didn't order more coffee. I didn't warm the room. "Auto pay is canceled," I said. "Guarantor status withdrawn at renewal. Building access suspended pending proof of income or a new cosigner. That's the current state." Anna opened her mouth with a spark of speech, but Casey lifted an index finger without looking at her. "Let her finish," she said. We all heard the difference between manners and control. "That's the finish," I said. "The rest is next steps." Silence put its elbows on the table. The cafe hummed with other people's Saturdays, strollers, laptops, a dog sighing on a mat. Outside, N26th Street held a strip of sun like a coat it might wear if the clouds behaved. Casey set her stir stick perfectly straight on her saucer. "I don't finance adults," she said, voice even. I taught Anna that. It wasn't loud, and it didn't need to be. The sentence leveled the table like a carpenter's tool. I watched Anna blink, then look down. The pedestal she'd dragged into my kitchen shrank until it looked like what it was. A picture frame, not a foundation, Casey added. "I could loan first month and deposit to de-escalate this," sliding the stir stick aside with her nail. "If you co-sign to protect my credit." She said it like an option sheet, not a trap. I capped my pen and set it on my napkin. "No," I said. "My signature is a boundary, not a bridge." We let the word sit. A refusal can be kind if you let it breathe. Anna leaned forward. "People will talk, Lois," she said, the syllables smooth, practiced. "They'll wonder why a mother would—" I picked up my coffee and took a measured sip. "Let them talk truth," I said. "Payments are documented. Respect is a receipt." Casey didn't look at me. She watched her daughter as if she'd just now met the version who speaks in public. Phones light up in cafes the way gulls lift from a pier, sudden, uncoordinated, inevitable. Casey's screen flashed. Her thumb hesitated, then tapped. I saw, briefly, the family group thread reflected in her spoon. A scroll, a bubble, a line I knew too well rewritten as a plan. I'll say the line tonight so she finally stops meddling, time stamped an hour before my pudding set. Casey's jaw tightened, not theatrically, just enough to hold words in place. She turned the phone toward Anna, quiet as a librarian. "Enough," she said. "No lecture, no heat, just the edge of a ruler." The air changed, the way a room does when someone opens a window you didn't know was painted shut. I unfolded a single paper I'd brought and slid it to the middle. Leasing office hours. Bus routes from Proctor to Hamilton, a list of entry-level shifts from the community board with circles around 2 that hire fast. "Pick 2 today," I said, tapping the checkboxes I'd penciled in the margins. "Show up, text confirmations, Monday at 9, you're in the office." Casey nodded once. "You'll stay with us 48 hours, she told her daughter, not asking. "After that, you're either moved or employed. Those are adult lanes." Anna looked at the page like it was in a language no one had warned her she'd have to learn. Her mouth made a shape that wasn't a word. In the window, the light shifted again and made everyone look tired and true. I took a breath and let my shoulders settle. There is a dignity in small, clean plans. Casey lifted her gaze to mine. "We're not competitors," she said. It wasn't an apology. It was a removal of a false frame. "We never were," I said, and meant it. We'd both raised a story about our children. Neither of us was obligated to carry the prop work forever. We stood at the same time. My chair slid back without scraping. I took my cup to the counter and thanked the barista. The cafe door made its little bell sound as we stepped into late light. Outside, the Proctor sidewalks carried dog leashes, tote bags, and the usual Saturday errands. Over the rooftops, the sound held a sheet of silver blue where the clouds had split. My phone buzzed with a Seattle area code I didn't recognize. I let it ring twice so I could feel my feet on the pavement and the weight of my keys in my pocket. Then I answered. "Lois?" a warm voice said, puzzled like a man making sure he hadn't misdialed. "It's Michael." I hadn't heard that name in years, at least not from the source. The last time we'd spoken, it was about casserole dishes for a church drive and whether the ferry was running on time. He cleared his throat, smiling through the line. "Do you still like the ocean?" he asked, like a person who'd rehearsed something that simple because anything fancier would have been too much. I watched a teenager toss a tennis ball to a soft-mouthed dog and felt the low hum of the day settle into its track. "I haven't changed my mind about it," I said. "Asking because I'm heading down to Point Defiance to walk the promenade," he said. "Thought you might want to stretch your legs, if you're free. An hour. No big talks. Just air." The invitation landed the way a chair does when someone pulls it out for you without spectacle. Behind me, Anna and her mother had already begun walking toward the parking lot, heads bent over the paper with 2 checkboxes. I didn't owe anyone a speech or a recap. My son had a list and a pair of steel-toe boots. His wife had a plan and a mother who had finally said enough out loud. My house had space in the closet and Tuesdays at 11 reserved for sorting out the kind of knots you don't fix with a checkbook. Air sounded right. "All right," I said. "And 26th in 15. I'll bring a jacket." He laughed softly. "I'll bring the mints," he said, as if that had once been our joke. I hung up and texted Velma. "Meeting when is needed. Focus on your list. Proud of the photo. You're moving." 3 dots. Then, orientation confirmed for 5. I'll text after. I put the phone in my pocket and walked north toward the light that sat on the water like a promise it didn't have to shout about. By the time I reached the corner, a breeze had picked up, smelling like wet cedar and salt. I tucked my collar and watched a bus hiss to a stop. Doors opening to the kind of passengers you only notice when you start paying attention. A nursing assistant on break, a man with a lunch pail, a grandmother with a cane and a bag of peaches. People who show up and keep showing up. The world is steadier than people think when you look for the right evidence. I paused at the crosswalk and looked back. Through the cafe window, I could see Casey standing by the table, tapping the 2 checkboxes with a pen, then handing the page to her daughter like a baton. I didn't wave. Not everything needs a sign-off. The walk signal blinked its little white figure, and I crossed toward the sound, toward air that tasted like new paint drying, toward a voice that remembered my name and a horizon wide enough to hold more than one kind of future. The sound still had that late afternoon shine when his question floated through. Did I still like the ocean? I stepped onto my back porch with the cordless palm on the cool rail and watched a blue jay hop along the fence as if it owned the hour. I still like the ocean, I said. Michael laughed. That soft kind you make when you recognize an old street but the houses have been repainted. His voice sounded older, steadier, with room in it for silence. We traded headlines instead of speeches. His 2 kids launched, my one stumbling toward steadier ground. His deck tomatoes somehow beating Seattle fog. My sewing table getting a second life as a small business if I'm brave enough to file the paperwork. We were 20, I told him, so nostalgia wouldn't sneak in and drive. Brave in different ways. I chased a skyline, he said. You built a home. I don't apologize for either, I said. Me neither, he answered, and his pause landed gentle, like a chair pulled out at Sunday supper. We stayed in the present like it was a porch you sweep before talking. He described the light on Elliott Bay when the ferries line up like neat thoughts. He walks early with a friend who makes bad coffee and good jokes. I told him the rain here smelled like fur tonight, and my neighbor's dog had finally stopped barking at the mail truck. He didn't make any grand offers or promises dressed up as kindness, just sentences that looked like real life standing upright. I'm not a person to be rescued, I said, plain. Not anymore. I'm not offering rescue, he said. Company. One word, not a net, not a rope, just a seat. Steam rose from my tea like a ribbon. I could hear my clock through the screen door, the tick-tick that has seen every kind of news. He asked if we might switch to video, only if you're comfortable. I want you to see I mean what I say. I carried the phone inside and settled on the sofa, where the evening light is kind to faces. The camera opened on his, silver at the temples, laugh lines earned honestly, a kitchen behind him with a plant that had decided to live. Let me show you something, he said, turning his laptop. An email window filled the screen. A folder in the sidebar read, in simple font, Lois, unsent. The dates stepped across years like stones. I typed things sometimes, he said, and didn't send them. It wasn't my place then. I figured, someday, if we ever spoke. I felt it before I thought it, soft astonishment without embarrassment. Not a shrine, not a secret file of wishes, just small notes a person writes when he doesn't want to lose track of what is good. He clicked one from last winter, a photo of winter light on Elliott Bay, and 3 words, thought you'd smile. Another, a list of book titles with a line, you always read like breathing. Then a sentence dated 2 summers ago, body text plain as a grocery list. I hope she remembers she's more than useful. Show me one from last month, I said, because tests matter. He opened a draft from July, 2 lines, a link to a museum quilt exhibit, and if you go, I'd like to hear what the stitching taught you. It was about my eyes, not my wallet. I set my mug down and let my face say what my mouth didn't yet. Thank you for seeing the right part of me. We kept it practical. Sunday morning, 9? He asked. Sunlight's kinder than evening. 10 minutes. No production. 10 minutes, I said. One step at a time. If you ever want to see the sound, he added. I make a decent salmon, and my deck has 2 chairs that don't wobble. Let me build 3 steady weeks first, his shifts, my booth application, I said. Then we'll pencil something, not carve it in stone. Pencil's my favorite tool, he said, grinning. Erasers save friendships. A text slid across my screen from Velma, a photo of a stamped intake form and a penciled night shift schedule grid, orientation, 5 p.m. tonight, warehouse. I'll make it. I typed back, proud of the start. Keep going. I didn't mention Michael. Threads should braid only when they're strong enough. He asked about the quilt I'd kept from the hall closet culling. I held the phone so he could see a half-finished block on my table. Navy triangles meeting cream squares. The seams ironed flat like a little argument resolved. He smiled and lifted a tomato the size of a fist. Proof of life, he said. We laughed, the easy kind that doesn't need a punchline. Standing still can be movement if you're facing the right direction. We drifted to small things. How my porch swallows are back. How he can never remember if Basil likes a haircut. It does, I said. Be brave. It forgives. He tilted the camera so I could see the basil. Then I'll do what your sentence just told me. It took me a second to realize he meant the tone, not the words. I liked that he heard the difference. When the light thinned, I walked the phone back to the porch and sat. One more boundary, I said, because grown women deserve to hear themselves declare them. I won't triage anyone else's panic with my bank account. Not my son's, not yours, not mine on a lonely night. Good, he said. I'm bringing salmon, not emergencies. We ended with logistics small enough to hold. Sunday at 9-10 minutes, 2 objects to bring to the camera. He'd show me the deck view. I'd show him a finished quilt block. No vows. Just proof that both of us can keep a small promise. Morning came clean and quiet. At 9, my screen framed a square of my sewing table, the finished block laid flat, corners meeting like people who finally learned how. His camera held a slice of water between railings, sunlight blinking like a kind of code. He lifted another tomato, absurd and perfect. I held up the quilt square. Look at that, he said, like the tomato had competition. We didn't say big words. We didn't need to. After 10 minutes, we let the call land without dragging it out. Would you like a date on a calendar? He asked before we hung up. Yes, I said, and it surprised me how easily the syllable fit. Let me stack 3 steady weeks first. Then you can bring salmon, and I'll bring a story that isn't about fixing anyone. Company, he repeated. Company. I said back. When the screen went dark, I opened my planner and drew a small wave beside a Saturday 3 weeks out. Not an ocean, not a wedding, just a mark that means remember to look toward the water. A breeze came through the window, tugging the kitchen curtain like a polite child. My phone buzzed again. Velma. Orientation done. First shift starts Tuesday. Sent you the email. I answered. Good. Pack a lunch. Steel-toe socks help? Then I put the phone face down and listened to my house be quiet in a way that wasn't empty. Later. I took the finished block to the porch. The rail had warmed. The neighbor's sprinkler clicked its steady metronome, and somewhere a kid laughed like summer hadn't checked the calendar yet. I set the block flat and pressed the seams with my palm. The fabric held. The pattern made sense. I didn't feel rescued. I felt accompanied by my own choices, by my son's steps, by a man who keeps unsent drafts because words matter even when they're not delivered. Inside. The kettle hummed. I wrote 2 lines on a sticky note and pinned it to the fridge. Job fair, Monday. Booth app, filed by Wednesday. Then I drew another wave, small as a breath. Pencil, Eraser within reach. Company ahead. On purpose. I left the little wave on my calendar where I'd drawn it, then circled the days that would carry me there. Monday and Wednesday became therapy, in blue gel pen. I penciled Velma's night shifts, neat squares with arrows so I could track the turnarounds, and blocked a Sunday for sewing. No errands, no rescues, just fabric and breath. September 6th stayed a small curl of ink by itself. I slapped a magnet over the page on my fridge like I was signing a treaty with my future. Velma kept sending proof, the kind that doesn't need applause. A selfie with his temp badge and a hairnet, a PDF of his intake, then a first pay stub with taxes and union dues pulled out clean. I texted back a thumbs up and 4 words, "Keep clocking in, son." Not a pep talk. Adults don't need confetti to keep going. They need clocks and pay cycles and clean socks. Therapy called right on time. We did our 10 minutes of check-in and moved to tools. "When you stop funding the fantasy," she said, "reality shows up." I wrote it on an index card and taped it inside the pantry door where I reach for oatmeal. It was for me, not him. I looked at the card when the house got too quiet, or my brain reached for old jobs, peacemaker, emergency bank. The door shut with a gentle click. The sentence held. On Tuesday, I took pictures of 3 quilts in the good window light and uploaded them to the Fall Craft Fair application. The form asked if I had liability insurance and a card reader. I checked yes to both. When the confirmation email landed with a green "approved" banner, hope didn't feel like a wish anymore. It felt like a booth fee charged to my account, and a Saturday spent talking to strangers about stitches that hide or celebrate themselves. I printed the confirmation and clipped it to my planner with a paper clip shaped like a heart someone gave me years ago. Midweek, I walked into my bank lobby with a list and came out lighter. "Tell them what's changing." My card said, "Not what you're afraid of." I signed the form to pull a small packet of travel cash, then went home and booked an Amtrak Cascade seat for September 6th, Tacoma Dome to King Street Station, window side. I printed the QR code big enough for my eyes and slid it into my wallet behind my Medicare card. The placement made me smile. Health and Horizon aren't enemies, they're neighbors. Michael and I set logistics like grown people setting folding chairs. "Olympic Sculpture Park at noon," I said on the phone. "I'll walk the blocks from King Street." "I can pick you up," he offered. "I want the walk," I said. He heard the part of me inside that sentence and didn't argue. "Then I'll bring the picnic," he said. Sandwiches that don't fall apart. The sound can do the talking. At the credit union, I checked and double-checked the last loose threads. No authorized users left on any account. Beneficiaries updated. A tidy note added to my profile. No co-signing by member request. The clerk initialed each page and slid copies across the counter. Corners aligned. Paper beats rumor. It always has. Anna tried once. A DM. Polished to a shine. Apologies and a brunch invite. Before you go, to clear the air. I read it twice, then sent one sentence. Please coordinate with the leasing office first. I didn't mute her. I didn't type a speech. The read receipt glowed. Nothing followed. Silence can be a boundary when you build it on purpose. The days filled with small, good work. I mended a hem for a neighbor and said yes when she insisted on paying. I timed my walks to catch the late blackberries at the edge of the park and froze a bag for winter cobbler. Velma texted photos from break rooms and loading docks. Second shift was rough. Back at it tomorrow. Boss said I can get on the forklift list if I pass the test. I answered with practicals. Stretch your back when you clock out. Pack 2 sandwiches. You always eat the first 2 fast. On the last Tuesday, I packed my bag on purpose instead of fear. 1 soft jacket, walking shoes, a coral scarf that makes my face look awake, a small notebook for sketches, the smallest bottle of hand lotion because train air is dry, no just-in-case heels, no extra sweaters for other people's drafts. I zipped the suitcase, and my house seemed to exhale, the way a room does after you finally take down a tree in January. My therapist asked about the wave I'd drawn. "Is it still small?" she said. "Small and bright," I said. "Like a light you can see from a ferry." "Good," she said. "You don't have to turn it into an ocean to let it carry you." Friday night. Michael called to confirm without fluff. "I've got the route from King Street to the park," he said. "There's a coffee cart halfway. I'll be the one with the ridiculous picnic bag." "I'll be the one with sensible shoes," I said. "Sensible shoes and a coral scarf," he repeated, and I realized I'd said it out loud earlier in the week. The detail felt like a handshake. Saturday morning, I left a neat note on my counter with the neighbor's phone number and the time I'd be back. I watered the fern and checked the stove twice because 60 plus is not an age. It's a system. Then I wheeled my small suitcase to the door and paused. My pantry door was open a crack. I tapped the index card with my fingertip and closed it softly. The platform at Tacoma Dome hummed with the good kind of noise. Families peering at signs, a teenager in a hoodie practicing a skateboard trick without the board. Couples holding coffee like talismans. I texted Velma, "Proud of your shifts. Keep going." He answered with a clock emoji and a bicep. "Tuesday forklift class. Wish me luck." "You'll pass," I wrote. "Remember to breathe before the turns." "Like you on the train," he replied. "Exactly," I sent back, smiling at my reflection in the safety glass. When the cascade slid in, the doors opened with that little sigh trains have, like they know they're part of our plans. I stepped up, found my seat, and tucked the suitcase overhead. The QR code beeped against the scanner with a clean note. I slid my wallet away and felt the edge of my Medicare card behind it. Health and Horizon, side by side like the pantry index card promised. Tacoma unspooled into salt and steel as the cars rolled north. I let the window do its work, stitching telephone poles into a moving seam. A little girl across the aisle counted bridges until she forgot the number and decided to start again. The sound widened, then narrowed. Ships gliding like careful thoughts. Somewhere near Des Moines, a bank of cloud lifted and the water threw light at us like it had been saving it. I wore the coral scarf and didn't feel costumed. I checked my phone once. No emergencies, no dead ends pretending to be surprises. A text from Michael. At the park. The chairs don't wobble. A second later, a photo of a picnic blanket with a view and a tomato sitting in the corner like a small sun. I put the phone face down and watched Seattle sketch itself onto the glass ahead of me. Lines I'd seen before and lines I'd never walked. When the conductor called King Street, I smoothed my jacket and stood. The car slowed. The little wave on my calendar was behind me now. Not a hope, but a push. I gripped the rail as the train slid into the station, breathing like my son before a turn. Slow in, steady out, ready to step onto a platform I'd chosen, with company I'd agreed to meet on a day I'd paid for myself. Seattle's skyline drew itself on the window, then broke into bricks and sidewalks as the train sighed to a stop. I stepped onto the platform at King Street Station with my small suitcase and the QR pass tucked behind my Medicare card, just where I'd left it. No taxi, no hurry. I followed the curve of the crowd up the marble stairs, crossed under the high clock, and let my feet pick a pace that matched my breath. Pioneer Square's trees threw a cool shade over the brick. Alaskan Way opened ahead, all salt wind and gull talk. The air tasted like a clean slate. At the Olympic Sculpture Park, Calder's red wings cut the sky. Michael stood under them with a canvas tote and the kind of smile that belonged to a person who shows up on time. We shook hands first, then a brief hug, no performance, no apology for years gone sideways. "Company?" he asked. "Company," I said. The word fit in my mouth like water when you're thirsty. He spread a picnic on the grass that made sense for people our age. Salmon he'd grilled that morning, tomatoes from his deck, sliced, salted with a little tin of pepper, paper plates, napkins that didn't pretend to be cloth. "If you'll allow," he said, "I'll bring the dinner. You bring your stories." "On those," I said. "I have inventory. No rescue on the menu," he added. I nodded, appreciation passing between us like a shaded patch of lawn on a hot day. We sketched out a small pact with the tip of my pen on the back of a postcard map from the park kiosk. Weekly walks when possible. No financial entanglements. Honest timeouts when family storms rise. We clinked water bottles over the list like it was a toast, which it was. Our signatures weren't flourishes. They were legible. My phone rang. Velma's name. I looked at Michael. He tipped his chin toward the water, like he could give me privacy just by aiming his eyes at the sound. "Hey, Mom," my son said. His voice had that tired ribbon in it, but there was iron running through. Night supervisor put me on 4 straight weeks. I signed the notice to vacate for the old place. They stamped it. "I sent you the PDF." The text hit while we were still on the call. "Release accepted," the header read. A loan key lay on a counter in the photo he attached, light catching the metal. "New lease?" I asked. "My name only," he said. "No co-signers. Keys turned in. I'm proud of the work," I said. "Not the words." "I know," he answered. "Keep going?" "Keep going," I said, and we hung up without extra glue. Growth stands on its own 2 feet. I showed Michael the stamped page because some proofs deserve to be witnessed. He took it in quietly. "Good," he said. "May his shoulders learn how to feel light and strong at the same time." We ate. The salmon flaked clean. The tomatoes tasted like August refusing to let go. Fairies stitched white dashed lines across the water as if they were teaching the city cursive. The wind lifted my coral scarf. I told Michael the sentence that had split my dinner back in Lakewood. "You're not even half the woman my mother is," Anna had said. He didn't flinch, didn't reach for outrage on my behalf. He didn't reach for pity either. "Then they measured wrong," he said, like a fact, not a bandage. But something in me warmed anyway. We walked the path, stopping at railings to watch kayakers braid toward the pier. I kept pace with my body, not my pride. He matched it without making a point of matching it. We passed families wrangling strollers, 2 teens taking turns photographing each other with a sculpture like it might get them into a future they hadn't named yet, a woman in a suit eating a burrito with full concentration. Cities are comfort because nobody asks you to be the only story. I pulled a small notebook from my tote and sketched a quilt block on the postcard with our pact on the back. A red triangle for the eagle's wing, a blue strip for the sound, a square of gray for the hard thing I lived through and didn't let define me. "I'm naming it Whole Cloth," I said. "Not half?" he asked. Deadpan. "Whole," I said. We laughed at the same time, not because it was a joke, but because it was true. He told me about his deck garden, tomatoes that shouldn't grow but do, a neighbor who hands over extra basil like it's an apology for the rain. I told him about the craft fair and the card taped inside my pantry door. "When you stop funding the fantasy, reality shows up," I said. "Then let reality pull up a chair," he answered. I brought one that doesn't wobble. Small kindnesses, big skies. Golden hour painted the water with a soft metal sheen. We packed the picnic, folded the paper plates together and slid them into the tote. No hurried promises, just the right kind of next. "Next Saturday, same place?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "and you'll text the menu ahead." "Menu," he repeated. amused. I like that your yes has a logistics clause. Adult joy, I said. It respects calendars. We reached the low shoreline at Myrtle Edwards as the light went amber. The tide leaned in and out, talking its old language to stones that had heard it forever. A freight train sighed behind us. A jogger's dog looked at me like I might have a treat. I didn't. This was not a day to hand out what I didn't carry. I stood with my toes almost at the wet line and let the water say my name the way waves say anything, by showing up and receding, by insisting and resting. I thought about the receipts on my table, the envelope under my palm, the speakerphone's flat voice, the red LED at the intercom, the donation stamp thumping my thrift receipt, the QR pass tucked behind the proof that I still go to the doctor. None of it made me bitter. It made me measured. I called Velma one more time as the light softened. "I'm proud of the shift," I said when he picked up, "and the notice, and the way you didn't ask me to fix any of it." "I'm learning," he said. "So am I answered. We let each other hang up first, then at the same time, and laughed when our screens blinked to voicemail. I sent him a heart. He sent a forklift emoji and a wave. I let myself read it twice. Michael touched my elbow, just enough to share the moment, not enough to narrate it for me. The coral scarf lifted again. A small flag on a small ship that had decided on its own course. "If I'm not half the woman," I said, "more to the water than to him, I'm a whole one." "Lois," he said, like it was both a greeting and a benediction. We stood until the chill suggested sweaters and the first streetlights blinked on. We walked back toward the park, our steps easy. He didn't take my suitcase. I didn't offer him my calendar. Company kept its shape. At the station, I hugged him the same brief way we'd started the day and promised the same thing. No bigger, next Saturday, with a menu texted ahead. I boarded with the crowd, felt the train take my weight, and watched the city turn back into a line of light along the edge of the Sound. The tide kept its rhythm, and for the first time in a long time, so did I. As I close this chapter, here's what I've learned. Love without boundaries turns into debt. Receipts protect respect. Help should lift, not replace, another adult's legs. I chose company over rescue, truth over noise, and I'm steadier for it. If you're carrying a family burden, start small. One clear no, one plan, one step. What line would you draw today? Have you turned a hard moment into a new rhythm? What would company not rescue look like for you this week? If this story touched you, type 1 or share where you're watching from. If it missed the mark, tell me why. I'm listening. And if you want more stories like this, please subscribe to the channel.